Jim Dragenti here with GamingBolt.com, and I'm here with the Vice President of Radical Games, and I'm going to ask him a few questions about Prototype 2. We just got to preview a pre-alpha build of the game, and everything looks pretty damn awesome.
Fantastic.
But personally, I love the way you can just navigate and get around in Prototype, 1 and obviously in 2, like we just saw. And I think it's just like, as far as open world games goes, if it was like that for every open world game, it would be fantastic. But do you think has it been difficult to stay original with the open world game genre?
No, the good thing about the open world genre is that there's so many possibilities. You can go in so many different directions. And for us, what was great is for the first Prototype, we had, this very, very rich story with a very rich background. And the idea of taking that story beyond where it ended last time just provided with so many rich things to do. One of the best parts of it was, you look at the fact that, yes, we're set in New York again, but it's a very different New York, right? We've got 3 distinct zones, right, all separated from the outside world. And each one of them has been impacted in a different way, right? You've got the heart of the virus in Manhattan, and you've got it, even, kind of exemplified even more from where we were before. And then you've got that kind of quarantine zone where people have been pushed in as even being used for kind of human experiments and other experiments, right? It's a very kind of nasty place that way. And then you've got that really, really heavily militarized zone. So for the fact that you now have these unique ability to play differently within that open world, so we've created that much more variety, right? So, I would say that there's still even more we can mine.
Okay, great. How will Prototype 2 link with the original game, the story, as far as the story goes?
Right. So the story is set now 14 months after the end of the last one. So clearly a lot of things have kind of progressed. Alex Mercer has his kind of own plans. He's progressed as well. Right. Those plans include Sergeant James Heller, and I can't go into any more depth into what those plans necessarily are. But being able to kind of look at the story has been ultimately about the virus, not necessarily about a singular person, but really about the virus and its impact. And it impacts sometimes people very differently. And to be able to look at the story from, Sergeant James Heller coming back from the war and having that real clear motivation of, essentially revenge for the death of his family. And I don't know about you, but if anyone came and wiped out mine, even though I'm Canadian and a pacifist, I'll tell you right now, I won't be afraid to go back to prison.
I hear you. Can you explain some of the... I noticed there's a lot of new features in the game. Can you explain just, a few of them? And
Sure. Well, the Biobomb is a fun one. So let's look at powers. So we've brought back a lot of the fan favorites. We have the Blade Armor, we have the Claw, we have the Hammer Fist, the Whip Fist, but we've introduced the idea of Tendrils, which is the ability for Heller to kind of virally change his fists into kind of these bludgeoning tools, but also the ability for them to draw and quarter enemies as well, right? So it's a very, very powerful tool. You saw it with the black hole effect and taking out an APC, right? It's just a marvelous tool, and it just kind of really enriches the environment. We had the Biobomb, the idea of being able to also infect someone and make them essentially kind of into a human grenade, right? You saw that. You can actually even throw them as well and launch them a certain distance. So we've got those kind of as features, but even the hunting mechanic. So now rather than, there's a target somewhere, they have an icon, go find it, it really is, you have to now use this sonar ability to find a target somewhere in the area. It's very, very, very active as opposed to just happening to be upon a target with an icon, right? And being able to direct that towards completing those operations missions and shutting them down, right? It's a very, very active system, and the character drives it forward as opposed to basically being told what to do. You as a player unlock things, and you go ahead and decide what you want to proceed with. So that's obviously very new. And obviously with the enemies, you've seen a whole bunch of new enemies. The very big enemy we call Tiny, I call Ken for some reasons.
Why is that?
He's the head of the studio.
Oh, okay.
Great guy. We often people get each other mixed up, so you'll see Ken with my name and mine with his sometimes. So
okay.
I'm clearly the prettier one. But the character like that, we wanted one which was so large that fighting it was going to actually be a very strategic kind of challenge, and being able to dismember enemies, being able to grab their body parts and use them against other enemies, right? Again, the ability to upgrade yourself on the consumption of those enemies, again, something very direct is something the player does, was really exciting. And I haven't just scratched the surface of things that are new. I can go on and on if you like.
I have time. But
and even the BlackNet, right? We kind of like the idea that we have, again, an active system for pursuing operatives within the open world, right? As opposed to just finding things. And the layers are actually one of my favorite because they're just full of infected goodness.
Otherwise known as Charlie Sheen's Home, as one of the other guys put it.
Yeah, we're trying to one-up each other in there, actually. I said it couldn't be crazier if it was narrated by Gary Busey with Charlie Sheen writhing naked in Jell-O. So we have a lot of things. Obviously, there's new things in the story to be found out. There's all kinds of new characters, new contacts. Again, we haven't revealed any of those, but those were really all enriched things. So obviously, what you've seen is a lot of the open world stuff, the combat stuff. But there's so much more richer even in the story. But unfortunately, we'll have to leave that for another time.
Okay. And as far as multiplayer or co-op, is not going to be any of that in the game?
No, we wanted to really focus on a single-player experience. And of course, when you're looking at the fact that this is happening to Sergeant James Heller, we really wanted to focus on that. And clearly, the most important thing in this open world right now really is getting that done really incredibly well. Do we have something like that for future ones? We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, that's the next question I was going to ask you is, do you think there will be any, way you could fit multiplayer into a game like Prototype? Because it's so unique the way you attack people and stuff like that.
Well, I think there's always the ability to be able to fit something like that, and the question is whether it makes sense, whether it's something that players would actually really enjoy, would it add more to the experience or not. So we balance all of that because, of course, one of the things we like in our world is we have lots of enemies and lots of things happening. Right? Do we want to devote those cycles to something else or not? So there's a lot of technical issues around it. But the main thing really is, do we feel that our fans will actually appreciate that later on? But right now, we really wanted to make that single experience just be fantastic.
Okay, cool. Do you think players prefer more realistic or more abstract settings?
The good thing about realistic settings is it's easier to kind of ground yourself in it. And we've always thought of the Prototype franchise as being, reality plus one. So in our case, it was kind of the reality of New York plus one of the virus. And I kind of like movies that have actually grounded themselves that way because there's a certain psychological effect. You look at even things like District 9 or Da Vinci Code or anything that has anything grounded in reality or potentially history or anything, actually suddenly brings a realism to it, which I kind of like.
Yeah, so it's New York, but it's a different New York.
Exactly.
All right, well, that's all the time I have right now, but thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, man. Really appreciate it.
Take care.